Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in any relationship is to create distance and let silence do the talking. In today's world where everyone is constantly connected, the sudden absence of your voice, your presence, or even your energy can be louder than any words you could ever say. When you step back and give someone space, it forces them to notice the shift. It's like removing a key piece from a puzzle. The image becomes incomplete, and that absence draws their attention more than anything else ever could. When you take a step back, you're giving him the opportunity to miss you. People often don't realize what they have until it's gone, even temporarily. By creating that space, you're allowing him the time to reflect on what your presence meant in his life. Maybe it's the way you used to encourage him when he was down, the little things you do to show you cared, or even the comfort of knowing someone was there to support him unconditionally. Silence allows all of that to come flooding back to him in a way that words or actions never could. You see, silence and distance work together to create a kind of emotional mirror. When you stop reaching out, stop checking in, or stop being readily available, he's left alone with his thoughts. He has to sit with the reality of not having you there. And in that silence, he starts to feel the weight of what he could be losing. This isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate. It's about understanding the power of your own presence. Sometimes your absence speaks louder than any conversation you could have. But here's the thing. Distance isn't about punishing him. It's about honoring yourself. It's about stepping back to create clarity, both for you and for him. It's in the quiet moments that he begins to realize the depth of your connection. He starts to think about what life feels like without your energy, your kindness, and your support. That's when the questions begin to surface. Why do I miss her so much? Why do I feel this void without her? That kind of reflection is powerful because it forces him to look inward and confront his own feelings. And you know what's fascinating? When you stop reaching out, people often start reaching in. Your silence doesn't go unnoticed. It creates a ripple effect. He starts to wonder, why isn't she texting me like she used to? Why hasn't she checked in today? That curiosity turns into a longing, and that longing can lead to a deeper appreciation for what you brought into his life. So don't underestimate the power of stepping back. It's not about withdrawing in anger or bitterness. It's about giving both yourself and him the space to breathe, reflect, and grow. And in that space, something remarkable happens. He begins to see you not as someone who's chasing him, but as someone whose presence he truly values. Silence, when done with intention, isn't the absence of action. It's the most profound action you can take. One of the most effective ways to encourage someone to come back is to focus entirely on yourself and your growth. It sounds almost counterintuitive because when we want someone to notice us, our natural instinct is to try to grab their attention, to show them what they're missing, or to convince them of our worth. But here's the truth. The moment you shift your energy inward, something changes. Not just within you, but in how the other person perceives you. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending you don't care. It means recognizing that you are the foundation of your happiness, your confidence, and your worth. When you start prioritizing your goals, nurturing your passions, and genuinely working on your emotional and mental well-being, you become magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are deeply in tune with themselves, who exude self-assurance and independence. As a result, you'll be noticing more people who are similar to you. Imagine this. Instead of sitting around waiting for him to text or call, you're out there pursuing the things that light you up. You're taking care of your health, spending time with people who uplift you, exploring hobbies that excite you, and working toward your dreams. This kind of energy is powerful because it shows that you're not dependent on anyone else for your fulfillment. It sends the message, consciously or subconsciously, that you're someone who is whole on your own. And that's incredibly attractive. When you focus on yourself, you also create an emotional shift. You stop projecting neediness or desperation and instead embody calmness and confidence. This is important because people are more drawn to someone who feels like a steady force in their life, rather than someone who is chasing validation or approval. You're no longer trying to convince him of your worth. Your actions speak for themselves. He sees the changes in you and it sparks curiosity. He starts wondering, what's different about her? How has she become so confident and self-assured? Another remarkable thing happens when you turn your energy inward. You begin to see things more clearly. Focusing on yourself helps you detach emotionally from the situation, giving you the clarity to assess whether this person is even right for you in the first place. When you're consumed with thoughts about someone else, it's easy to overlook red flags or settle for less than you deserve. But when you're centered and grounded, you start to realize that your happiness doesn't hinge on anyone else's actions. That kind of realization is liberating, and it puts you in control of your own narrative. And here's the paradox. When you stop focusing on him and start focusing on yourself, that's when he's most likely to notice. He sees you thriving, glowing, and evolving. He notices that you're not chasing him, and that absence of pressure creates space for him to reflect on what he's missing. Your self-growth acts as a silent reminder of your value, and it often triggers a desire to reconnect because he sees you as someone who is constantly becoming better, someone he doesn't want to lose. Here's the Shirimian American takeaway. He doesn't want to lose. So, don't underestimate the power of shifting your focus inward. It's not just about getting him back, it's about rediscovering your own strength and potential. When you prioritize yourself, you not only transform your own life, but you also create the kind of energy that naturally draws people back to you. And when they do come back, it's not because you convince them, it's because they see the undeniable value of who you are. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do to bring someone back is to give them the gift of space. Now, this might feel counterproductive at first because our instincts often tell us to stay close, to keep the connection alive, and to do everything possible to hold on. But in reality, stepping back and allowing space to breathe can work wonders, not just for the other person, but for you as well. When you give someone space, you're not just letting them process their own feelings, you're sending a strong message that you respect their autonomy and choices. This is a subtle but important form of emotional maturity. It shows that you're confident enough to let them take their time without feeling the need to constantly intervene or control the outcome. This alone can make you stand out. It says, I value myself and I'm not going to chase after anyone. If this connection is real, it will find its way back naturally. But it's not just about them. Giving space is equally about you. It's a chance for you to regroup, refocus, and recharge. When you're constantly preoccupied with someone else's actions or decisions, it's easy to lose sight of yourself. You can become emotionally drained, stuck in overthinking, or even start doubting your worth. Taking a step back allows you to reclaim your power. It's about putting yourself in a position of strength, rather than acting from a place of fear or insecurity. Here's the thing about space. It creates mystery. It allows curiosity to grow. When you step back, you remove the constant availability that people often take for granted. Suddenly, they start to notice your absence. They start wondering why you're no longer reaching out, why you're not chasing after them, why you seem so calm and content without them. That curiosity often leads to introspection on their part. And if you approach people from incessant curiosity and abundance, you'll often bring them to their knees. The question becomes, when people return to health or happiness and a good life, who do they leave behind? Who are they missing out on? They begin to question what changed, and that questioning can be the spark that reignites their interest. Space also gives them the opportunity to miss you. When you're always around or overly accessible, it's easy for someone to feel overwhelmed or even complacent about the relationship. But when you step back, you create a vacuum that only your presence can fill. It's in that quiet space that they begin to realize what they had. They remember your laughter, your kindness, the way you made them feel. And that realization can only happen when there's enough distance for them to truly appreciate what's missing. And let's not forget that space fosters growth for both parties. Sometimes people need time apart to reflect on their own emotions, priorities, and what they want out of life. By giving them that room, you allow them to sort through their feelings without pressure or distractions. It gives them the chance to come back to you willingly, knowing that it's what they truly want, rather than feeling coerced or cornered into making a decision. This doesn't mean you ignore them or play games. It's not about being cold or unkind. It's about stepping back with grace and trust. Trust that if the bond is strong, they will find their way back to you. And trust that in the meantime, you are still whole, still valuable, and still deserving of love, whether or not they choose to return. So, embrace the power of space. It's not about creating distance out of spite or manipulation. It's about letting the other person breathe, giving yourself room to grow, and allowing the relationship to find its natural rhythm. Because when someone comes back after you've given them space, it's not out of obligation. It's because they genuinely want to be there. If you want someone to come back, one of the most effective ways to make that happen is by focusing on becoming your best self. There's a magnetic pull in someone who is thriving. Someone who is unapologetically pursuing their passions, their growth, and their happiness. Why? Because it signals that your value isn't dependent on anyone else. You're telling the world and that person that you are whole, complete, and capable, all on your own. When someone walks away or pulls back, it's tempting to feel like you need to prove yourself to them, to convince them of your worth. But the truth is, you don't have to convince anyone of anything. Instead, your energy is better spent pouring into yourself. It's about taking the time to reflect on what you want, who you want to be, and what makes you truly happy. That self-awareness and confidence radiate outward, and people notice it. Think about this. People are naturally drawn to those who are thriving. Someone who is constantly working on their own goals, whether that's improving their health, advancing in their career, or exploring new hobbies, has an undeniable glow about them. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. When you're actively investing in yourself, you're creating a life that is fulfilling, with or without them. And that independence, that sense of being okay on your own, is what makes you so attractive. This isn't just about appearances. Yes, working on yourself can mean taking care of your body, your style, or how you present yourself to the world, but it's so much deeper than that. It's about nourishing your mind and soul. It's about building a life that feels rich and purposeful. Whether that means picking up a new skill, spending time with supportive friends, or simply reconnecting with what brings you joy, all of that adds to the person you're becoming. And here's the interesting part. When you're focused on your own growth, you naturally shift the dynamic. You stop chasing. You stop putting them on a pedestal or making their validation your main goal. Instead, your energy becomes centered on you. That shift is powerful because it shows that you're not desperate, that you're not clinging to something out of fear. You're simply living your life, and in doing so, you become the kind of person who inspires others to want to be around you. This journey of becoming your best self also gives you clarity. It allows you to see the situation from a fresh perspective. Sometimes, in the process of growing and evolving, you realize that you don't need that person as much as you thought you did. Or, on the other hand, your growth might help you approach the relationship with more confidence and self-assurance, knowing exactly what you want and what you're willing to accept. The beautiful thing about focusing on yourself is that it creates a ripple effect. People can feel when someone is genuinely happy, when they're not looking for others to complete them. That energy is contagious. It makes people curious. They start to wonder, what's different about them? What's changed? And often, that curiosity is enough to reignite the connection. So, don't wait for someone to come back before you start working on yourself. Start now. Pour into your own cup. Become the person you've always wanted to be, not for anyone else, but for you. Because when you do, you'll find that you don't need to chase or beg. You'll draw people in simply by being the most authentic, fulfilled version of yourself. And when someone comes back to you in that state, it's not out of pity or guilt. It's because they see the incredible person you've become, and they can't help but want to be a part of your life. When you genuinely shift your focus from chasing after someone to focusing on yourself, a remarkable transformation takes place. You stop seeing your worth through the lens of their approval. You begin to understand that your happiness, your peace, and your fulfillment are not tied to another person. This mindset shift doesn't just change the way you feel about yourself, it changes the way the world interacts with you. When you're constantly seeking validation or trying to prove your worth to someone else, you often end up feeling drained. You're giving so much of your energy to someone else's perception of you, leaving little for yourself. But when you choose to invest that same energy into your personal growth, everything shifts. The way you walk through the world becomes different. You become someone who is at peace with themselves, and that peace becomes magnetic. Have you ever noticed how people who are fully content with their own lives attract others without even trying? They don't need to chase or seek out connections because their presence alone is enough. The best part about this process is that when you start working on yourself, you begin to naturally attract the right people into your life. People who appreciate you for who you truly are, not just for what you can give them. And here's the powerful part. When someone sees that you're living your life in a way that's authentic and fulfilling, it sparks something in them. They start to question why they're not as fulfilled or why they're not giving their best to themselves. This can often create a sense of longing or even regret in the person who pulled away. But that's not your problem anymore. You've already made the decision to prioritize yourself, and by doing that, you've positioned yourself in a space where you can decide whether you even want that person back in your life. This doesn't mean you should stop caring about them or forget them altogether. It's about creating healthy boundaries and recognizing that your value isn't defined by their actions or presence in your life. When you start living for yourself, you stop waiting, you stop hoping, you stop worrying. And that is exactly what makes you irresistible. You become someone who is capable of standing on their own, emotionally self-sufficient, and in charge of their own narrative. People are drawn to confidence. And true confidence comes when you stop needing validation from others. You create your own path, your own rhythm. You show the world that you don't need anyone to complete you because you are already complete. And when someone sees that shift in you, they can't help but be intrigued, drawn back in, because they want to be a part of someone who is whole, fulfilled, and grounded in their own self-worth. Protecting yourself from the marketing you are hiding. Show the world you are complete in your own self-worth. The key here is consistency. It's not about doing it once and expecting miracles. It's about cultivating this mindset every day, over time, until it becomes a part of who you are. When you consistently focus on your own growth and well-being, you are not just becoming more attractive to the person you want to come back, but you are becoming more attractive to the world at large. You'll start to see that your life, your relationships, and your self-worth are no longer dependent on anyone else. And that is one of the most powerful positions you can take in life. When you shift your focus away from trying to control or manipulate someone else's behavior, and instead prioritize your own growth and well-being, you begin to see the true value of letting go. It's a difficult step because for so long, you might have believed that by giving more of yourself, by holding on tighter, you could somehow influence their feelings or bring them back into your life. But the truth is, that kind of approach only creates more resistance. The key is to understand that attachment doesn't create connection, but healthy boundaries do. When you stop chasing someone or overextending yourself, something remarkable happens. You give them space to reflect, and in that space, they have the opportunity to miss you. Sometimes what they need most is a reminder of your value, and they can only see that when you stop showing them how much you're willing to sacrifice for them. Maybe that was a signal that you weren't here today. Much like for your listeners, you're gone, they're gone, and you do not practice self-care. When you stop over-investing emotionally, you also stop becoming so reactive. Your actions aren't driven by desperation or fear of loss anymore, but by a deep sense of self-respect and clarity. This change in how you react to situations not only strengthens your self-esteem, but also reshapes the dynamic between you and the person you desire. When you stop making them the center of your world, you create room for them to see you for who you truly are, not just the person who's always waiting for their attention or approval. This doesn't mean you have to completely shut yourself off emotionally or pretend that you don't care. You're simply learning how to care for yourself more. You're learning how to recognize your own worth, and by doing so, you stop needing them to validate you. You stop living in the emotional roller coaster that often comes with constantly trying to please someone or earn their affection. Instead, you begin to operate from a place of emotional stability and strength. When they see this shift in you, it's magnetic. It's a reflection of self-love, and that's a quality that others are drawn to. People often return to the things that make them feel good, and the most attractive thing you can do is become someone who is at peace and happy with who they are, independent of anyone else's actions or affection. Moreover, this process gives you the opportunity to reassess your relationship with that person. You're no longer approaching them with a mindset of, I need them to come back to feel whole. Instead, you recognize that you are already whole, and if they return, it will be because they see the same strength, independence, and emotional growth in you that you now see in yourself. This shift in perspective not only creates the possibility for reconciliation, but also opens up the opportunity for a healthier, more balanced relationship where both people are coming to the table with self-respect and a sense of personal fulfillment. By focusing on your own growth and well-being, you create the space for them to come back if they choose to. But here's the most powerful part. Even if they don't return, you'll have already built a life for yourself that's full of fulfillment, purpose, and peace. This is the true power of letting go. You're no longer living in the past or waiting for something that may or may not happen. You're living fully in the present, and that's when the real magic happens. When you begin to focus on your own personal development, something remarkable occurs. You stop waiting for external validation and you start to build inner confidence that doesn't depend on others. This shift is critical because it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly seeking approval from someone who has walked away. Whether it's in the form of attention, affection, or even reassurance that they still care, we often find ourselves chasing after that validation, hoping it will make us feel complete. But what really happens is that we give away our power and our emotional energy, leaving us drained and stuck in a cycle of waiting. Instead, when you focus on your own growth, whether it's through learning new skills, engaging in hobbies that bring you joy, or nurturing your mental and emotional health, you begin to reclaim that lost power. Personal development becomes the foundation for you to stand tall, independent of the need for someone else's approval. As you work on yourself, you gain a deeper sense of self-worth. And this doesn't just come from the surface level of self-esteem. By seeing and asking more potent questions, when you start to search out the truth, you recognize that you have the power. It's a profound understanding that you are enough just as you are. This is where true healing begins. When you no longer look for someone else to fill the void or fix what you perceive as broken, you become your own source of strength. Instead of waiting for someone else to come back and make things right, you start to recognize that everything you need to be whole is already within you. This doesn't mean you don't care about the other person, but it means that you recognize your own value and refuse to settle for anything less than what you deserve. The act of focusing inward shifts your energy. When you stop being fixated on the person you want to come back, you stop giving off desperate energy. This is important because desperation is never attractive, but self-assurance is. When you become secure in your own self-worth, you no longer need someone else to confirm your value. This makes you more magnetic, not just to the person you're hoping will return, but to the world around you. You begin to draw in not just romantic possibilities, but opportunities for growth, connection, and fulfillment that you hadn't imagined before. Additionally, when you engage in personal development, you're essentially preparing yourself for the future, no matter who that future involves. If the person you desire to come back sees you thriving and evolving, they may start to reconsider their position. It's important to understand that your growth isn't contingent on whether they return. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of the outcome. And the more you invest in yourself, the more you strengthen the possibility of attracting what you truly deserve, whether that's with that person or with someone who aligns better with who you've become. So, while you may have started this journey hoping for their return, the truth is that the real transformation happens when you focus on your own growth. When you become the person you need to be, whole, confident, and self-sufficient, you open up the possibility for a relationship based on mutual respect, appreciation, and equality. It becomes less about needing someone to complete you and more about sharing a life together as two whole individuals. And no matter the outcome, this personal growth will never be in vain. It will always serve you in ways you can't fully see right now. When you shift your focus away from waiting for someone to come back and instead turn your attention toward building your own life, you begin to see the world in a completely different light. This shift is not about ignoring the past or pretending that your feelings don't matter, but it's about making the conscious decision to reclaim your life and move forward with purpose. It's easy to become fixated on the idea of them coming back because you're emotionally attached, but you must recognize that your life doesn't have to be defined by someone else's actions. The first step is acknowledging that the process of moving on is not linear. It's not about a single decision that you make and then everything magically falls into place. It's about making a consistent effort every day to focus on what you can control, your mindset, your energy, and the way you approach life moving forward. Every time you invest your energy in your own growth, you start to shift the dynamic. The more you focus on yourself, the more you naturally detach from the need for external validation. You see, when you take the time to nurture yourself, you allow your worth to be defined by you, not by someone else's choices. This is when real freedom starts to unfold. The more you lean into your passions, engage in meaningful connections, and cultivate your inner strength, the more your life begins to expand in ways you didn't anticipate. The person you were when they first left is not the same person you are today. You've grown, you've learned, and this growth attracts better opportunities, ones that align with the person you've become. When you stop waiting for someone to fill that gap, you open yourself up to new experiences and new relationships that honor your worth. The amazing thing about focusing on yourself is that you create space for more genuine connections to enter your life, whether that's in the form of new friendships, opportunities for success, or even new romantic possibilities. You stop clinging to a hope that is rooted in the past, and you start building a future that is rooted in your own potential. The decision to focus inward also shifts the energy you project outward. When you become the person who takes ownership of their own happiness, the people around you start to take notice. You become a person who inspires others because you are no longer looking outside yourself for fulfillment. Instead, you are the embodiment of self-assurance and strength, and that radiates to those who are paying attention. And when it comes to the person you've been waiting for, the beautiful part of this journey is that your growth isn't dependent on them coming back. Instead, it's about you becoming the person who can handle any outcome with grace and confidence. You begin to understand that even if they never return, you have built something far more important, a life that is worth living on your own terms. So, the ultimate truth here is that when you stop waiting and start living for yourself, you not only give yourself the gift of freedom, but you also open up the possibility for genuine love and meaningful connections, in whatever form that may take. The person you become during this journey is the person who is ready for whatever the future holds, with or without them. And that is what makes you truly irresistible, not just to the person you've been waiting for, but to the world around you. When you shift your focus from obsessing over someone's return to investing in your own happiness and growth, something incredible happens. You start to realize that your peace and well-being aren't dependent on another person. It's a powerful shift from a mindset of lack to one of abundance. You stop waiting for external validation and instead cultivate your own inner peace. When you make this choice, the energy you emit changes, and it's felt by everyone around you, including the person you've been waiting for. By prioritizing yourself, you give yourself permission to live a full and meaningful life, regardless of anyone else's actions. This shift is not about being selfish or neglecting others, but about recognizing that you have the power to shape your own reality. It's about no longer feeling empty without someone else, but instead filling yourself up with your own worth, your own joy, and your own purpose. The key to this transformation is the awareness that when you stop waiting, you stop stagnating. Life begins to move forward and new opportunities, both personal and professional, start to present themselves. You begin to see the world through a different lens, one that's no longer clouded by waiting for someone else to define your happiness. And as you become more comfortable in your own skin, you naturally begin to attract people and circumstances that align with your new, empowered energy. When you stop waiting for them to come back, you create space in your life for new experiences, ones that fulfill you and make you realize that you don't need someone else to complete you. You realize that you are whole on your own. And this realization is key. The most fulfilling relationships come when both people are whole, not when one is dependent on the other for their happiness. So, in essence, by focusing on your own growth, you're preparing yourself to be the best partner to someone, whether that's the person you've been waiting for or someone else entirely. The act of taking your power back is also an act of self-love. You stop investing in someone else's journey at the cost of your own. Instead, you make your journey the priority. You begin to see your life as a story that you're writing, not one that's been written for you by someone else's actions. You are no longer a passive observer waiting for a storyline to unfold. You are the author of your own destiny. And when you reach this point of personal growth, your energy and presence become magnetic. People notice. Your ex, the person you've been hoping for, starts to notice. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate the situation. It's simply about you being your most authentic self, focusing on your life and showing up as the best version of yourself. That in itself becomes a powerful signal. And it's often in this moment, when you've let go of the attachment, that the person you've been waiting for realizes that they too have missed something incredibly special. In the end, the truth is this: when you stop waiting and start living your life with purpose and passion, you naturally create the space for what's meant for you to find its way back to you. And if it doesn't, you are still whole, still complete, and still worthy of every beautiful thing life has to offer. When you begin to live with a sense of abundance rather than scarcity, something remarkable happens. Your entire energy shifts. It's not just about expecting someone to come back. It's about recognizing that your life has so much to offer on its own. When you're no longer in a position of need or longing, you step into a space of empowerment. You become the person who is complete and fulfilled within themselves, independent of anyone else's actions or presence. It's about knowing that you don't need anyone else to fill you up because you are already whole. In this space, you are able to attract the people who align with your energy. You stop chasing, and instead you begin to magnetize the right energy towards you, including the person who may have once walked away. They start to see you as the person they've always admired, confident, self-sufficient, and emotionally resilient. When you show up as your most authentic self, no longer needy or desperate for validation, you become someone that others want to be around. People are drawn to that energy. This doesn't mean you should settle for someone who doesn't meet your needs or respect your boundaries. It means that you don't feel like your happiness is dependent on someone else's actions. If someone returns, it's because they see you for who you truly are, not for who you were when you were desperately waiting for them. If they don't return, you've already realized that your own journey and growth are far more important than holding on to something that wasn't meant for you. In this way, when you let go of waiting and embrace your own power, you create a life that is full, fulfilling, and rich with opportunity. You stop seeing life as something you need to wait for and start living it as something you're actively creating. You stop waiting for someone to come back to complete you and start focusing on completing your own journey. Ultimately, it's about understanding that you don't have to settle. You don't have to wait for someone who may not see your worth. Instead, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, and that is when life begins to fall into place. Because when you stop waiting for someone else to make you feel whole, you realize that you always were whole to begin with. And that's the most powerful thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for every relationship you attract into your life moving forward.